This is the Parents in Sport podcast. Amazing guests, honest conversations, topics that matter.
Welcome to the Parents in Sport podcast. I am your host, Gordon MacLelland, and I'm delighted to be joined today by sporting parent and former England and Great Britain badminton player, Gail Emms. Gail, thank you for joining us on the show.
It's a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, so in today's episode, we are going to be talking about sports parenting. But Gail, I'd just like you to tell our listeners, obviously I remember who you were back in the day, but if you could tell our listeners a little bit about your sporting career, what you're up to now, and maybe a little bit of your life since retiring as a player.
Yeah, so badminton, it was my sport. I managed to go to 2 Olympic Games in my professional career. I went to Athens 2004 and I got the silver medal in mixed doubles with Nathan Robertson. I also became European, Commonwealth and World Champion. So I pretty much won everything apart from that Olympics. Damn that silver medal. So yeah, I retired after Beijing Olympics actually, 2008. Myself and Nathan came 5th in that Olympics. We went for gold, didn't quite come off the way we wanted it to do. So I pretty much retired then and there. I knew that I wasn't going to make it mentally to London 2012. So I retired with this grandeur of taking over the world, as sports persons' egos are so big and think we're amazing. Had an interesting transition in sport, from sport. It's been a roller coaster of emotions and, you know, sort of not quite sure what I wanted to do. But in that time, I'm actually a parent. So I have 2 wonderful boys, Harry, who is 10 years old, and Ollie, who's 7. And in between being a mum, I do keep up that sport. I'm a motivational speaker. I go into schools. I promote activity for young, old, whatever your age. I event host, and I'm a business coach as well as a mentor for lots of sports people. I'm still passionate about sport and its importance in society, not only for, you know, when we go into primary schools and I jump up and down with them, but also for generations like myself and mental health. So yes, sport is my life and passion. So I'm, you know, it's hard in this lockdown period just to keep that activity going, because I know so many people are missing sport, not only watching it, but being part of something. So hopefully sport will get a new generation of appreciation in that area.
Yeah, absolutely. And you've been trying to keep everybody going with the pub sports quiz, haven't you?
Yes, I know, which has started out as a bit of a joke, and I thought, oh, you know, I'll do a sports quiz. It was actually Keith Gillespie, the Northern Ireland football player.
Footballer, yeah.
It's all his fault, right? So we were messaging, and he loves the quiz, right? He's a proper quiz geek. And I said, all right, you know what? I'll do a little quiz for you on Twitter as a bit of a mates thing. And it's just exploded now. And I thought lockdown was only be a few weeks. So I thought, oh, you know, after 3 weeks, it'll be fine. Like week 9, I'm like, oh my God, I'm struggling to think of questions now. So the questions are getting more and more random, but we're having so much fun doing it. And people are there every single time. Yeah. And, you know, so this is what I'm saying about lockdown. It brings people together. So, yeah, I am a quiz extraordinaire now.
Yeah, absolutely. There's some great questions on there, and I've sort of come across them. I've enjoyed having to go at a few of those myself. I just think while we're talking sports parenting, and maybe we have got some sports parents listening whose children have maybe stopped playing or are transitioning perhaps out of pathway sport, maybe in their teenage years, or have given it up after, you know, they've maybe invested quite a lot of time, commitment over the years. Anything you would share about your experiences and knowledges around that sort of transition period?
Yeah, so I had sort of my own personal, when I was growing up through sports, it is very different to what it was to what it is now. And this is why it's quite hard. When I was going through being a sports person, sporty girl, sporty teenager, there were no pathways. There were no, you have to do this, you have to do that, otherwise you're off this and you're not allowed to be in this team or whatever. There was none of that. If I told my school that I want to be a professional sports person, they'd have laughed at me. There was no avenue for girls to be a professional sportswoman. So sport for me was fun. and it was a hobby, and I always saw it as that. I saw it as a hobby. So when I kind of transitioned from being a professional, I had forgotten about the fun. And this is what we have to remember straight away. What is the true essence of sport? When you see your child playing that sport and they're smiling and they're in that bubble and they've got their mates around them, or you can see that, they go into that competitive mode, or that their true personality comes out. That's what you have to remember. I think we forget it so much with all these pathways, and you have to be here 3 times a week, or you're not allowed to come back, and we get so caught up in skills and this and that, and sometimes we forget about that. So if there is someone struggling, or sort of unsure of which path to take, have that conversation about those first memories, the good memories, and what was your best time? Can you remember that the best goal you scored, or do you remember that feeling when you first did judo for the first time? And it's just trying to get that smile back. And when you do that, then you suddenly realise what it means to you. Talking about coaches, your favourite coaches and funny moments, all these little things massively help, because whatever that person's going on, whether they're doubting themselves, or or if I made the right decision, am I good enough? Shall I carry on? I'm struggling. When you remember the good times, you remember those good things and how you can learn from it, suddenly you know why you did it, and you can put a whole different perspective on it. I'm so grateful that my sporting journey when I was a youngster, it was always fun. There was never ever any pressure on me. My mum and dad always said to me, like, the minute you stop enjoying it, just stop. Doesn't matter what, you don't think you're letting us down or anything like that. If it's not fun, it ain't worth doing. And that's what I think we have to remember, is that true essence of why we do what we do on that pitch, on that court. Because that's what it's about. It's
absolutely.
About
and I think sort of parents at the very beginning of the journey are absolutely fine with that. We have absolutely no expectation whatsoever. We take our children along, they join in things, life's absolutely brilliant. And then the moment there's any form of lots of selection, or there's an opportunity to do something better, or our children resemble a mini adult off the TV, we seem to lose all sense of why we were here in the first place. And it is easy to get sort of sucked along by that part of the sporting journey. I know when we do workshops, one of the key questions that we always try and get parents to ask their children and check in regularly is, why are you playing? Yeah. And that response will change in time. It might be different for a 9-year-old to when it is when they're 13 or 14, or at the end of a pathway, whatever that may be. But actually, if we don't know why they're playing, it's really difficult to actually be positive as a sports parent, because we don't know which bit of it we're actually supporting. And what you said there about it being fun, yes, that you can define fun 82 different ways, as Amanda Visek tells us in her work, but it's still ultimately something that they're enjoying doing, and we must really keep an eye out for that as parents, I think.
And we have to remember about being like yours, and I know it's parents, but remember that word, parents. You are a parent. You're not their coach. Parent comes first.
Yeah.
You are there to look out for the welfare of your child. And we can get blinkered by, oh, your son is amazing, your daughter could do this, and earn loads of money, do that. Yeah, of course we can get blinkered by that, and we do want the best for our children. But ultimately, the mental well-being of your children is apparent. Sport now is a very tough, high-pressured business. So you, as a parent, and that is the first thing you should do, are they going to be happy? Because I will tell you, as 10 years as a professional, a happy athlete is a good athlete. That's it. You could coach me, do all this, you could blah, 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 your latest sports science, all that. But if I'm not happy, I ain't going to be good.
Yeah.
So that is, it's just that's the basics of it. A happy athlete will want to perform, will want to train harder, will want to go and do more and, learn and do this and try this. An unhappy athlete, or that athlete that has fear, whatever age it starts becoming, the athletes that have a fear will not perform. Yeah. And they're the ones that we lose. So yeah, parent first, not agent or coach. Parent.
I think you've sort of raised a couple of really good sort of bits in amongst that. The first one is, did your sporting background, have you evolved into how you see it now, or were you very clear at the very beginning that you were going to adopt that approach, or was there still a little bit of Gail Emms, the athlete, this is what happened to me, so I'm going to, because that's what I know, I will start that off with my children? Did that happen?
Yes, so you're right. I am a very different person to when I first retired. So you're right. We are, as an athlete, you have a shell around you. You have to, because whether you call it a mask, a shell, it's different for every person. And I work with lots of ex-athletes about this, and it's a protection, it's a self-preservation. We are the gladiators that go out on that pitch. We're going to get abuse, people's opinions, coaches going, all right, you should be doing this, we get all that. So we put a shield around us. And I was a very, probably a bit snobby, a little bit like bitchy perhaps, Queen Gail or whatever. It was on my persona to protect me from if I lost or whatever. It's all ego and that shell. So when I first retired, one of my first jobs was to go work for the Youth Sport Trust. And they told me, said, right, we're going to work with kids, in using sport to help them. And I was like, okay, I'm amazing at sport, so this is perfect, and I'm amazing. And they said, well, actually, we work with kids that are disadvantaged and got low self-confidence, and they are perhaps anger management, and they don't like sport. And I was like, oh my God, what are you doing to me? Who are these people? There were people out there who don't like sport. But what it taught me was how to strip back my layers, take off that mask, talk openly, talk about the real passion that I have, to look back and reflect on my career. And instead of going, I'm amazing, I've won this, to actually go, well, you know what? The reasons why I got here is because I had a great support team around me. The reasons why I started, because actually I was inspired by this person. And by reflecting and looking back at it in a positive way and helping other people, you suddenly see it, oh yeah. And that's when I can look back now and I can be a completely different attitude when I talk sport with my children. Because you're spot on. If I'd have had them straight, literally like there, and I just retired, it would be like, come on, all guns are blazing, we're just going to go out and train and protein shake here. There'd been a whole map of, sort of circuits laid out for them.
Yeah.
Now it's completely different because I see it in a different way, and I'm really thankful. Really thankful, because I see the other people who haven't been able to do that.
Yeah.
And they think that's the only way to go about it. And I'm like, oh, and you have to bite your tongue, because but you have to, it's about exactly what you're doing. It's teaching and educating parents about it, because if they don't know, then it's hard. So yeah, it's great that people like yourself are helping parents with this, because it is a new thing. I'm lucky in a way, because I've had that opportunity to reflect and understand the process, and understand up here is actually the best thing for the body and how an athlete performs.
Yeah, and we're very fortunate when we're talking very sort of honestly and openly about this, that we have some understanding of sport and the background. One of the reasons that working with parents in sport was set up was because there was a recognition that there were millions that have no sporting background. Yeah. If they haven't played, or they haven't been involved in sports at any level, or they haven't coached, they're having to navigate their way through the grassroots experience, anything that comes along with no real support or guidance. And it's not about telling people how to parent, and it's certainly not about preaching to parents or anything like that. But I think being able to share experiences and give parents a chance to reflect, to come up with a plan that works for them in their context is really, really important. Obviously, that period of reflection you had obviously was huge for you. You were lucky, because I think lots sort of get to it when they were sort of 14 and 15. You know, we had Andrew Guy on the show, James Guy, the swimmer's dad, has been on an episode, and he said he was very different from when James was 10 to where James is now, and he's 25, and how those conversations evolved, and how his approach had to change, and how James sort of took more control over it. But he's had to learn on the journey. You obviously had that period, as you say, where you were able to sort of at least get some ducks in line before that.
Yeah, and I you know, and this, I still won't get it right either. And, you know, no, there's going to be no perfect sporty parent. There's no perfect parent. There's no perfect athlete. So I think it's, again, you know, helping parents understand that there's no right or wrong. You can only do the best you can do. And sort of, it's, you know, I think there's so much pressure on parents. You know, being a mum now to two sporty boys, it's only now that I realise how much my parents gave up for me. My dad was the one who did all the taxing around, and, you know, sort of basically spent all the money on me. My dad passed away nearly 3 years ago, and it's only now that I've gone, now I get it, and I can't say thank you. You know, I can't appreciate all that, you know, sort of effort and, you know, dedication and sacrifice for him, for me. So yeah, it's hard, you know. We're never ever going to get it spot on or right. And sometimes I just, you know, now, you know, I was a moody teenager sulking in the car. We just driven for, you know, 2-3 hours to a tournament, and there's me going, woo, and he, you know, and he put up with that. And now I'm getting that back. So you just want to, you know, give him a big hug and say thank you. But we, as parents, we don't know what's going to happen. Our children are maturing. Their sport's maturing, their minds are going to change, their emotions, hormones, the lot, and we just have to do the best we can, basically. Yeah,
and I think puberty plays a key part in that for me. I've thought long and hard about it. I've had I guess a unique situation where I've sort of coached every level from men's through elite 18s to very good under 13s to under 7s. So have seen the whole sort of journey as it evolves and develops. And I think that I have decided that we can't really tell who is any good before they've gone through puberty, because I've had some of the best players in the country at under 13 and they are nowhere to be seen at 16. I've seen boys in football academies who are the best 9-year-olds and are nowhere to be seen at 11. I've seen the best 16-year-olds who are nowhere to be seen at 19, and all these different stages. But puberty is a huge one, particularly in games which have that sort of physical aspect to it, because we're guessing until we've gone through that stage. So we almost can dial down the pressure up until they've gone through that point and come out the other side. Yep,
I completely agree. I think it's, I don't quite understand why there's pressure before that time. There's no need. Why are we putting that on our kids for no reason? And all this talk, oh yeah, but that's, you know, we can tell the ones that have got, you know, that can handle it. You know, like you say, some might handle it at 9 and then can't handle it at 12. So what is the point? You know, how about creating those fun atmospheres, you know, as long as we can, because we all know life is rubbish when you're adult. So, you know, why are we putting pressure, like an adult situation, which only adults, not every adult can handle it. So why are we putting this situation on kids that, you know, well, there's no need? You know, it's only about, the ones that will handle it, it'll come through. Yeah. You know, you can't teach it necessarily. You can just slowly, gradually introduce it, and then you just have to step back and see and nurture. That's what we should be doing all the way through. until, it starts getting more serious and you can start introducing it. You're absolutely spot on. I wouldn't do it. And sometimes I'm thinking, you hear these comments on the sideline. I'm like, they're 7. Come on, you must win. They're 7 years old.
It is.
Are we really? Yeah.
Yeah. And again, though, I mean, Mark, I hold some sympathy to some respect, because if we put on the sort of view that some people maybe haven't had, going back to not maybe having that sporting background or that understanding of sport, all people are actually doing is using that youth sporting experience or at those junior ages as to how society perceives sport. So we basically take how we might sit in front of the TV and have our opinion and cheer and support, and we just copy it because that's what sport means to us. But actually, there's a very big difference between what we're watching on the TV and, as you say, the under-9 game around the corner. But nobody's ever stopped to. Nobody's ever really stopped to maybe have that chat and do it. So hopefully, in that respect, we're starting to fill a few gaps.
The word sport is the word sport. That's the problem. It sounds we use it for such a big range of activities, and that's the problem. We hear the word sport, and suddenly we put competition, winning, onto it. No, sport can be sport, but there's no. Yeah, that's the problem. And it sounds so. One word can really change how. Yeah, an under-7 game to the Premier League. So you're exactly right. People just transfer their emotions onto the kid, and it's like whoa. No need whatsoever.
No. And I think that for me, I mean, it's very funny. This will make you laugh. In all the workshops that I do with parents, I'm massively competitive. I'm competitive as a dad, competitive as a coach, competitive as a player, and have to try and win at everything, including the garden games that I've been playing this afternoon. Yeah, absolutely. But I have to, before I even start, I have to say, let's get one thing clear here. I am not a happy, clappy, laissez-faire parent who doesn't value winning and competition. But what I am here to say is that isn't the be-all and end-all. And we have to dig a bit deeper that, of course, winning's great and competition can be good. And developed in the right way, it provides amazing opportunities. It's when that becomes the be-all and end-all, and there's no other thought processes going into the rest of the experience that the issues come.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, totally.
But yeah, it is. It's certainly fascinating. It's a fascinating piece. So, what have been the best bits for you, Gail? Being a sports parent, what have you enjoyed the most?
I have enjoyed. It's just going to sound really weird, and I'll try and explain it. What's been the best bit? It's almost a smugness, and I mean this in a good way. So when I've been watching and I've seen, I'm around the other parents, my smugness of being calm and just allowing it to happen. And I think that is one of the best things as a parent, I can sit there, and I'm the same to you. I'm the most competitive person ever. Literally, I hate losing. But I have this real sense of when I'm watching my boys, I'm really chill because I'm really smug, because I know that they know it's them, not me.
Yeah.
I cheer, I support. I never ever, sort of go, yes, like that. My emotions are all very, very calm, and I really enjoy that smugness because I see the other parents can't cope, cannot cope whatsoever, and I just go, I care.
It is, isn't it? It's tough, isn't it? It is. And again, it's really tough as a parent around competition. I mean, you do quite well there because I'm quite grumpy and go and stand on my own. So I've taken it another stage further than you. You stay in amongst everybody else. I've done it. What's been actually really nice is I've known some of the parents that we watched with football. You know, my son's in a football academy, and we've been together for a few years, and actually a few of the others have started walking away from any kind of the noise and actually standing on their own and being more objective and doing it. And actually it's been really refreshing. A couple have come and said, oh, I can see why you've maybe done this now, and that's quite nice. But I think we're all owed that opportunity though. I feel really strongly that everybody should be given some support on that, because you know, parents are there and they're shouting because they want the children to do well. They think that by shouting all the instructions that's going to help their child. They think that, you know, they don't want to be seen another parent to be shouting more because that maybe makes us look like as not as good a parent as somebody else. But actually, we know that the shouting of instructions and multiple instructions are not helping the decision making of young players. It's a wall of noise that confuses them. They don't listen to it. They're not bothered. If you ask them, they really hate it. If you actually ask the children, it's like, oh, please stop. You know, we've done that with lots of groups. But I think we need the children to tell our parents. And as parents, maybe we need to say, how do you want me to support you on game day? And let's...
Yeah. Oh no, I was saying you've got two really good points there. I wanted to kind of sort of expand on from personal experience. So I am a massive believer on coaching and teaching on the child's personality, not on their talent or level of skill or academia. You coach on their personality, and there are 4 different personality types. You've got very alpha male type, you've got very talky people, you've got very step-by-step instruction people, and you've got very routine people. So you're exactly right. You ask, you find out, you know what your child is personality-wise, and you coach or parent to that personality. There's no point being shouty, dominant, back to a person who needs step-by-step instruction, because it clashes. So you're absolutely right. It's like, actually, what works for you? Do you want me to be quiet? Would you like me just to clap? Do you want me to relay some instructions that you want me to, like, just reminders? I will tell you now, so coaching is allowed in badminton. So my coach was at the back of the court, and he could sort of coach me while I'm playing. I'll tell you what, I said to him, just 2 things. That's all. I don't want anything else. 2 things. And my coach only said to me, move your feet and rack it up. That is it. So I'm an Olympian. And those 2 basic things were the only things that I needed to be said. Move my feet, rack it up. Move my feet, rack it up. And everything will be all right.
Yeah.
So why are we, and that, I'm 27, late 20s, early 30s, playing in the Olympics. Move your feet, rack it up.
Yeah.
That's all you need. I can tell you what, even my coach, in the breaks, I have no idea what he said to me. No idea whatsoever. So why are we suddenly going, keep the line to a 7-year-old when they're going, what line? You're distracting. To encourage a child to make their own mind up in that moment of in a game is the best thing you can do. Allow them to make that decision of what to do, what worked, and how to, if it didn't work, how to make it better. All those little things, by being that parent and allowing the coaching and your child trusting your child, that is the best coaching you can do. They're the ones that got to do it. You telling them what to do, you ain't gonna, I'll tell you what, you're not gonna get the best athletes out of them.
No, and you know what, it's quite interesting because we work with a couple of badminton organisations. I'm not going to name them specifically on this, but I spoke to the parents who have to sit at the back of the court at the under 11s, under 10s and everything else. And 90% of them absolutely hated it. Yeah. And I asked them the question, so, well, what do you say? What do you do? And they're like, well, sometimes I don't really know what to do. So I'm basically just there as chief supporter and I hand the water over. I said, okay. I said, when do you find it most difficult? And they said, well, when the other child is getting more help and more support, I feel really under pressure. So then I end up just yelling anything because I don't want my child to feel that they're getting one thing. So I went back to the badminton organisation after this chat because it was just me with the parents, which, is slightly more relaxed. And I said, why have we got the chairs at the back of the court in junior, tournaments? I said, I don't understand. We're talking about creating self-reliant athletes that we need now in the long term. And we've immediately put a real barrier to that by having the chair there. And they turned around to me and they said, I don't know. It's just something we've always done. And I've suggested, I said, well, maybe it's something that just because we've always done it might not be the right way to go about it. And perhaps we could remove them so that the children can get on and play, the parents can feel less stressed, and everybody's far happier just from actually having a conversation about it.
Yeah. Yeah. And what happened then?
Well, I think that was towards the end of last season and towards the COVID. Right. So I am back with them, and I'll be asking where we're up to with the chairs.
And again, you'll get different mixed reviews. I mean, everyone's got different opinions on it, and that's the problem. Like, some parents will be like, if I want to coach my child, I'm going to coach my child. And, and I get that, I understand that, and it's a very, very hard one. But you're absolutely right, I don't agree with it, because you are creating situations where that child is now sort of looking back after every point, help.
Yeah.
No, this is not, it's no.
No. It's the same out, but it's the same out in other sports and sports that are on fields, that even in training, you've got the child that is always looking over to mum and dad for approval or a nod. Well, they're not going to be there at some point. And some coaches aren't going to yell multiple instructions to you. They're going to stand and coach really effectively by giving feedback at the right times. And who are you going to call for information? Well, you need to work it out yourself, because it's you that's going to end up having to do that.
Yeah. It's a very strange situation, and I know that the kids is that, the ones that, whether it's approval or it's just, and it becomes a superstition and it becomes a habit. And that's where you start, then you get that psychological barrier. So you're actually creating more problems than you should, because suddenly it becomes a habit to look. Oh my God. And then they're not there. I'm not going to, sort of that I'm going to muck up the tackle now because I can't see my parent. And it becomes more of an issue because it started off as an issue, and that's what we've created in sport. And then, we've, my son played in an academy, and, so then in the end we took them out of training. Parents weren't allowed to watch training, which I thought was brilliant. No one can judge any other child, or that child's doing that child. It got rid of that, and it was really, really good. But some parents just couldn't handle it, and even the kids started getting like, "But I can't look at you, but I don't know where you are." And it's not healthy to get. But that's what we've, it's getting that balance of, helping the children understand a parent is a parent. They're your cheerleader, but they're not your coach. They are not going to determine your career or, whatever sport, however your sports journey is. Only you can do that. Now, if you want your parent there for support, that's fine, but you can't have them all the time. And, sort of it's educating the child and the parent together, as well as just the parents and just the children. It's a real emotional roller coaster. And again, by keeping that fun for as long as possible, then it's not so, my mom's not there and I can't look at her and I don't know, I can't do that shot or whatever. So you take that away and suddenly, oh yeah, my mom saw that, that's awesome, and you create that happiness bubble, which was what it should be.
Yeah, absolutely. I think on that note, I was going to ask you for your 3 top tips, but I think you've almost given me them there in that sort of last piece of speech. Gail, your enthusiasm is infectious. It comes across brilliantly in the podcast, and I hope the listeners enjoy the episode. Thank you for joining us on the Parent in Sport podcast. Really appreciate your time.
No worries. Thank you for having me, and keep up the work, because, like I say, we're all stressing and we all worry that we're not doing the right thing, but having yourself around and, doing those workshops is going to be a real help to lots of people, parents and kids and the coaches. So, yeah, keep up the great work.
Thanks, Gail. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening. Check us out at parentsinsport.co.uk.